Is there a specific reason that we can point to that explains why Loki grew so exponentially powerful at the end of Loki Season 2? In the Loki Season 2 finale, we watched as Loki became one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel Multiverse. He became so strong that he could quite literally weave timelines together and maintain their stability across the entirety of reality. But is there a reason why Loki was able to achieve this now in particular, and wasn't able to before? Well, today, my friends, let's discuss what made these circumstances so different, and explain why Loki was able to grow so powerful so quickly. The reason goes back to Loki's physiology, and specifically his Asgardian heritage. We know that Loki was adopted from Jotunheim and is technically a frost giant by blood, but for the first 1,000 years of his life, he was unable to distinguish himself from the rest of his Asgardian brethren. He was also trained extensively in Asgardian magic, and was saturated by it thanks to his mother and his years of training. This got to the point where it was able to conceal his appearance without him ever even knowing, and he had no way of actually being able to tell that he was not Asgardian. This is all to say that Loki's biology seems to be virtually indistinguishable from that of an Asgardian, with this being extremely important. The most important facet is that as Asgardians age, they grow more and more powerful until the time of their death. The peak of their power is much later proportionally speaking than humans, who usually reach their physical peak in their late 20s into their 30s, but of course this is different for everyone. Asgardians, however, are the most powerful at their later stages of life, until they approach the time of their death, and they wane much more rapidly. Because of this, there seems to be two primary reasons as to why Loki was able to grow so strong in such a short amount of time. The first is, as Loki attempts to repair the throughput multiplier, he finds himself trapped in a time loop that takes hundreds of years for him to sort out. We know that Loki was around 1,000 years old during the events of the Avengers, and this time loop would have made him much older, and therefore more powerful. This not only ages him drastically, thus increasing his power, but secondly, Obi's explanation of what exactly is happening outside furthers this point. When he warns the group about what is going to happen when they step through the blast doors, he says that whoever goes out there will be saturated with temporal radiation on an unprecedented scale. They are about to step into a void of raw, unrefined time that is to be woven into an infinite number of different possible realities. This is enough sheer radiation to fuel the entirety of the multiverse, and every timeline that does and will ever exist, making it the most powerful source of raw time that reality has to offer. We know this because he says that the suit will age away, exposing whoever is inside to a surge of temporal radiation. If our previous logic tracks, then this would also serve to drastically heighten Loki's power because time strengthens Asgardians, and this might explain why Loki was able to amass such a massive surge of strength in such a short time. The temporal radiation outside of the blast doors was so strong that it was able to age away Victor Timely's suit and him in turn, within a matter of seconds. This implies that hundreds of years were being pumped into Timely and the suit in just a few brief moments. So if Loki was absorbing hundreds of years per second, then he would have rapidly grown into one of the oldest Asgardians in known history. This also seems to imply that temporal radiation makes Asgardians utterly surge in power, and Loki, so far as we know, is the only Asgardian to ever be exposed to raw temporal radiation. As of right now, every Asgardian that we know has only been exposed to properly woven time that had already been forged into a timeline. They have aged according to the natural flow of history according to their timeline, and are consequently only able to absorb so much temporal radiation before they die. It's also important to remember that these are the highest levels of radiation that even the TVA has ever seen. But perhaps more importantly, what does this mean for Loki's future? And will he continue to get even stronger? When the loom was overloading, it was attempting to force as much raw radiation through the rings as possible, as it needed to accommodate the infinite number of ever-expanding timelines. This created an oven of extreme energy, and now this loom has been destroyed entirely. Even if there was another Asgardian who had access to the tomb beyond the blast doors, then the levels of radiation wouldn't have been nearly as high as they were in this specific instance. The loom only needed to draw in enough power for one timeline to maintain its integrity, so even if there was someone else who had been exposed, nobody has been exposed at that level. Loki's current domain is outside of the TVA in what appears to be the remains of the Citadel at the end of time, and this might mean that Loki's growth is not yet done. Without the loom, there is no regulation on how much temporal radiation is able to make it into Loki's throne, and this energy is pulsating through every timeline that he's woven into the branches of time. The energy outside of the TVA gave him the power to collect strands of time and tie them together into one collective, but that may be just the very beginning. We can see a distinct green glow all around Loki after he forges the new multiverse, and this might be granting him more and more power with each passing minute that he spends at the center of the tree. As to what else this might mean, however, we can only imagine. Right now, Loki is known as the God of Stories, which was taken from a Loki variant of the same name. This variant is quite literally capable of rewriting entire timelines to his liking, and can change the story as he sees fit. As of right now, we don't know how much more powerful this version of Loki could get, or if he's working himself up into that point. Regardless, it stands to reason that the next time we see this variant of Loki, he will be one of the most powerful individuals the multiverse has ever seen, and may not even be done growing yet. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this idea? Do you think that the supersaturation of temporal radiation is responsible for Loki's immense surge in power, or is there another reason why he suddenly became so strong and like a true god? Are there other factors at play here? Is this no longer the main driving force? And what else do you think could have happened here? Thank you as always so much, my friends, for visiting the channel today. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and I hope you're having a great one.